My friends and I made a ghost movie when I was 10. From the moment we met at 6 years old, Olivia and I were inseparable. Our similar interests, meshing personalities, and lack of other friends in school set us up to be the perfect pair. We soon became known for our creative playground games and matching outfits assembled from whatever similarly colored t-shirts we could find in our closets. Almost every weekend revolves around a playdate, events which later turned to sleepovers. These typically took place at Olivia's house, as that was where her younger dissenter, Isabel, could be found. Isabel wasn't your typical younger sister tagging along with her older sister and her friends. She was fun and bright, and we enjoyed being around her. Most of the things we did were better with 3 people anyways. Hide and seek, jump rope games, the like. Aside from that, the 1-year age gap also helped, as we were on a pretty similar maturity level. This story isn't about Olivia and I's friendship though, but rather about the end of it. On Friday, June 13th, 2008, we were 10 years old and excited about a release from that year of school. In our usual fashion, we organized a sleepover at Olivia's house to celebrate that very night. Olivia had gotten a flip video camera the weekend before for her birthday, and we had big plans to create an Oscar-worthy movie with our cast of 3. Olivia and I had spent our recess writing a script revolving around a ghost that tries to kill 2 orphan sisters after murdering their parents. I think we have Annie to thank for our morbid obsession with orphans, as I think many other kids did. Of course, Olivia and Isabel would be the orphan sisters, and my camera-shy self would play the ghost, covered by a green blanket the entire time. My friends lived in an old Victorian house, so we knew our setting would be just perfect. Their playroom, taking up most of the partially finished attic, had green walls and small stained glass windows that allowed in rays of tainted sunlight. We decided that would be the girls' bedroom, and that was where the movie would take place. I had never loved being alone in their house, but I usually attributed that to being in a place that wasn't my own. Their attic playroom was oddly quiet, but again, it was 2 floors above where their mother cooked dinner and their father napped on the sofa. When we arrived after school, we ushered Isabel up the stairs, chattering excitedly the whole time about our plan. As kids' movies usually are, ours was unscripted, with us just having generic characters and a desired ending in which the ghost is killed by the sisters with holy water. We basically filmed me jumping out from behind their couch, popping out of closet doors, and chasing the girls down the hallway, all covered in the heavy green blanket. We thought it was fantastic. When it came time for the final scene, we had Isabel set up in their playroom, lying face down on the floor. We had gotten a butter knife from the kitchen, and my character was supposed to attempt to stab Isabel, but to be stopped in time by Olivia, pouring holy water onto and disintegrating the ghost once and for all. We set up and I began my evil ghost laugh, about to make a stabbing motion when Olivia screamed, "Cut!" I stopped and turned towards her, wondering what was up. "I forgot the holy water, Megan. Come with me to make it. Isabel, don't move." I got up and followed her, making sure Isabel was all set before closing the door behind us. Olivia and I ran to the kitchen, getting a glass of water and dumping way too much glitter in it to make it holy. We then ran back upstairs and found Isabel exactly where we had left her. She looked at us and we nodded, letting her know it was time for the final scene. As the ghost attempted to stab Isabel, her faithful sister ran in screaming, "Stop! You'll never take her!" while pouring a glass of glitter-filled water on my head. I screeched, creating what I then believed was the greatest performance of my life, falling to the ground and dying. After a moment of silence, Olivia shut off the camera and the 3 of us giggled in giddy excitement. Racing down the stairs, we hurried to their computer, ready to plug in the camera and watch our masterpiece back. We never got to watch it though. As we were hunting for the cord, We were called to dinner and forgot all about it when Olivia and Isabel's mom offered to take us out for ice cream to celebrate the end of the school year. We picked up a movie on the way home, with the one we had created resting in the far back of our childish minds. Isabel died that night. I have to rip the band-aid off. I don't want to nor need to go into the details of that early morning discovery. But what I do need to tell you is that she died completely unexpectedly and unexplainably. Olivia and I drifted apart after that. 10-year-olds aren't built to deal with such grief, nor able to understand and process it. Every time we saw each other, all we could think about was finding Isabel's lifeless body. It was sickening in so many ways. While you don't forget something like that, you eventually have to move on. That's what I'd been able to do, but understandably Olivia had a much harder time than I. I hadn't heard much from her since 2008, but last night she contacted me. "Hey, do you remember that video we made? The ghost one? The night it happened?" "Yeah, I do." I didn't know what else to say. "Well, I found the camera and plugged it in today. I wanted to watch it. You know, we never did. I know it sounds crazy, but I was hoping you would come watch it with me. For Isabel. I think she would like it." "Of course I will. When are you free?" "Tonight, I'd really like to watch it." I drove over soon after, back to that old Victorian house where my innocence was stolen. I walked up the steps, taking a deep breath and reaching for the door to knock, but Olivia opened it before I could. I looked at her and could tell she had been crying. It took everything in me not to cry too. She invited me in, and we exchanged an awkward yet pleasant hug. I saw behind her a laptop set up with the camera plugged in. She ushered me over to it and we sat ready to play the tape. The screen opened showing Olivia and Isabel sitting on the couch, pretending to eat dinner and drink wine. I could see my blanket itself in the background, creeping up behind them before shouting, "Boo!" and scaring the pretend heck out of them. The rest of the movie was scenes just like this, at least until the end. We got to the scene where I attempted to kill Isabel. Watching it now, it seemed incredibly morbid. I looked at Olivia and she looked back at me. I could tell she was thinking the same thing. We continued watching, laughing when Olivia halted production to go make holy water. We had left the camera on. I saw us walk out of the room, and then I saw someone else walk in. Something else. Isabel was still lying face down on the ground as the thing approached her. It was gray and transparent, almost like a fog hovering over her. At first it was very faint, and I almost dismissed it. But as it began swirling around her, faster and faster, I knew it couldn't be my imagination. I felt Olivia grab my hand and knew she saw it too. The fog swirled like a tornado above Isabel's head before she turned over in a daze. She looked up and her eyes grew wide. She tried to tell for us, but as she opened her mouth, the supernatural twister filled the space, blocking any sound from exiting. She coughed for a minute, then turned back over, resuming the position she had been in moments before. Not 1 minute later, Olivia and I walked back in and we performed the final scene. You would have never known what happened in the few minutes we were gone. As the young Olivia on screen fumbled with the camera to turn it off, the older one before me broke into screams. "It killed her! It killed her!" She then collapsed to the floor in sobs. I sat with her and held her, letting my own tears fall now. We stayed like that for a while. When we had no more tears to cry, we looked at each other in confusion. I don't think either of us wanted to ask what the other saw, what the other thought. We just existed together for a while. Our silence was broken by Olivia asking if I would stay over that night. I agreed. I can't imagine she would want to be alone in that house ever again. I don't know what we saw or why it happened, and I still can't decide if I want answers. It may be a more dangerous game to play, and one that won't bring Isabel back. One of two things I do know for sure is that whatever that fog was, it took Isabel from Earth that night. The other thing, the one that I'm not sure how I know, is that it's not done with us.